Hello, Ben here with Studio on the Lake. This is a video that was an opportunity video, and that's it right there. It's a dwarf chair for the youngest dwarf. He just turned 18 months old, and I made him a cardboard box chair the other day, and he liked it. So I thought he needed a sturdy chair. It had to be pretty stout, and as you can see from the start of this, he likes to stand on everything and flop all over it. So I started making it, and then I thought it would be a good film project. That's why you see the base there is already started. It's put together with 3-inch screws. The wood that I'm using is basically firewood. It's from a basswood tree group that I've been collecting, and I've been catching the branches and saving them for firewood. It's still wet, as you'll see later on, so it won't get a finish on it until it's dried for a couple months. It peels up pretty clean, but it gets pretty dirty looking with sap after that. I'm putting a whole bunch of screws in the legs there. They're short because he's just a little fella, and he doesn't, when he flops over, he doesn't need to flop too far. And you can see each of those legs is angled out, and it tilts kind of a little bit to the back there. All done in the interest of dwarf safety. I opted against mortise and tenon on these, or pegging them together. Those long 3.5-inch screws will make it pretty sturdy, and it'll even get more so as this wood starts to shrink. So I started to put some arms on there. He is a little fella, but he does flop all over the place, so a conventional arm sticking up won't work. And I thought, well, I'll take a thicker piece and put it on the arm and just stick it in the back there. So it's one piece, and here's the back that I was looking at while I saw those arms. Picked out a couple branches that had a smaller branch coming off of them, and thought just kind of angle that in the back there and angle it in the front and give it the look of an arm. So I like the looks of that one, and I picked that piece up that I just set down, and these two actually matched pretty good, except for one of them was a little bit larger than the other. Kind of threw the look off. I ended up going with the one on the right there that has a burrow or an opening in it, and now in use he takes that. It's not big enough for a cup holder. Thought it might be initially, but it is big enough to put some Cheerios or something in there. He likes to stash food around. I got lazy. I wanted to get it filmed and then see if it worked. So I stopped peeling using the draw knife, standing up in the corner. That's pretty boring to watch. Each of these I take over to the bandsaw off camera there and get the angle right on them. The bark comes off fairly easy, but it again, it is wet wood, and the sap starts to come out. This one's a little problematic on the left there. It has that big old burrow in the middle, but it sure gives it a lot of character. But you can see how easy that stuff comes off. It's even easier with the draw knife that's stuck in a vise. Once again, the stake of sturdiness, I found a pretty neat little forked branch, and that's going to be the support for the back, and then there's another forked branch that's going to go over that. So setting up this first one, it needs to angle back a little bit to make it comfortable, of course. he does lounge around comfortably, flopping his feet. I tell you, using those screws sure makes it quick and easy to put together. Quite honestly, a lot sturdier on the outset, even with glue and the tenons. It's going to look something like that when I get done messing around with it. I attach that bottom piece and angle it. You can see I'm using the Dwarf with the sanding disc on there. It's about a 50 grit sanding disc. It cuts pretty quick, although it does gum up pretty quick with this wet wood. It wouldn't do that quite so much if I allowed this stuff to dry for a year or so. It is basswood, so it does slice, and there is something fun cutting fresh basswood that's not dried. Does cut, or wet wood does cut pretty well. It's almost a buttery consistency when you're cutting with it. The problem with doing that is whatever you do, carve wet will dry unless you use peg or something along those lines, and you soak the whole piece in it. It definitely will crack and end up with cracks through it, and you'll end up refinishing it a year later. I only pre-drilled one or two of these holes. The rest of them, the wood just goes ahead, and it hasn't split at this point. It might in the future. So they're starting to look like a chair. It is heavy, I guarantee you. Initially, I thought a piece of plywood or some wood on the bottom there. And then I remembered that I have a roll of actual chair strapping, or whatever the heck they call it, for springs. So why not go with what's supposed to go there? I would have put some washers over these screw heads, but I just didn't happen to have any that fit correctly, and I doubled the strap over on the back, and it seemed to hold pretty well. This is going to get stood on, jumped on, and all sorts of abuse. Went ahead and sped this up 4 or 5 times. You don't need to watch me put each individual strap on there. I guess that doesn't make sense. Even though I sped it up, you get to watch me put each individual strap on there. I just weaved each of them back and forth, and it turned out to be pretty solid. If you're actually making a chair, they make clips that attach to these things, and you can really pull them tight. These don't need to be that tight. I'll put some foam in the bottom and maybe coerce somebody in the future to make a cushion out of, put some cloth on it for it. There you have it, a ready-made all set for a piece of foam. I didn't film all of the removal of the bark, and I didn't actually remove all the bark. I left the bark on the legs. Probably end up taking that and taking those off. If you do that, you got to seal it right away. Let it dry slowly, or the bark will eventually get loose and at some point pop off. For those of you that like bark on stuff like these, it's a little trickier to keep that bark for all eternity. You can see it's starting to darken up a little bit. That's the sap coming through that, and it just gums up sandpaper at this point right now. Little chisel work, cleaning up the end points on the arms. Now you can see that burl on the right hand arm that turned out pretty interesting. This is one sturdy operation. If I'd noticed a little bit earlier, it has a little bit of a wobble in it. You'll see I'll take that out later on when I actually set it on something flat. There's a piece of foam that seems to poke down in there, just nice for a nice cushy seat. I did trim this back piece up just a little bit more. It's almost a shame to put it in there. You lose the tree branch in there. Oh, there we go. Look at the wobble on that thing. That won't work. Nothing a right angle grinder and sanding disc without a guard won't take care of. Don't recommend you take your guard off it like that. It will bite you. So there you go. This was a fun little project. Just thought I'd throw it in there. If you were watching real closely, I might have zoomed it a little too close in there, but the wizard video that I still owe you, the hands and the top of it, I intended to do that this morning, is sitting on a stump to the left there. But this character really needed a chair. And there he is, just prior to dumping the blueberries all over the floor. He's sitting there watching TV in it. I could have made it bigger. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you like it. And by all means, just like always, subscribe, share it with other folks. Thanks. It's been Ben with Studio on the Lake.